So a Nigerian mental health nurse based in the UK could be facing up to 17 years of prison time in the UK if found guilty of several crimes that has been accused of him. Guys, this is a very sad and a very heartbreaking story. I usually don't do stories like this, but this really touched my heart because this guy in question had no prior offenses, whether when he was back in Nigeria or even as he came to the UK. He's never had any issues with the police, but unfortunately he could be facing up to 17 years in prison. There is a lot of morals in this story that all of us can actually learn one or two things from. So if you know anybody abroad, whether in the UK, Canada or Australia, wherever, kindly share this video to them so that they can also watch and learn a few things from this story. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, kindly do me a favor and subscribe as we bring you more impactful content about traveling abroad and living abroad. Right, so let's get straight into this story. So this Nigerian guy named Tolu, he came to the UK about 6 years ago as a student to do his master's degree. So Tolu had actually sold a lot of family properties and personal valuables in Nigeria in order to make enough money and pay for his tuition in the UK. And this is a very common practice. Most people that come to the UK would sell a few things so that they can afford their tuition or even afford their life in the UK in the first few months until they get a job and get stabilized. So Tolu came in, did his master's in mental health nursing, and then completed his master's degree. And at this stage, Tolu was a very happy man because that is a very great achievement. Tolu also got 2 years postgraduate visa. That means he had a chance to stay in the UK for further 2 years while looking for a job. So Tolu was a very happy man at this point. So those of us who don't know, with the UK immigration system and the UK Nursing and Midwifery Council, even if you come into the UK to study as an international student, if the program is not a pre-registration course, you will have to go through the registration process, write your English proficiency exams. And what the course Tolu did was a post-registration because he was already a nurse in Nigeria. So after his master's degree, he had to write his English proficiency exams and then apply and do the registration just like everyone else coming from Africa or outside the UK to practice as a nurse. This became a bit of a struggle because the English proficiency exam, as a lot of people know, is not something that's very easy to get. So during this period, Tolu met a British woman, a British lady who had 2 children and the children's fathers were not in the picture. So these children were 7 and 9 years old and both had different fathers. So Tolu met this woman and they started dating. Tolu took the woman's children as his own children. He was very kind with them, took care of them as his own, treated them very well according to reports. So after a brief period of time, Tolu said he noticed things started changing. This lady started racially abusing Tolu, like calling him all sort of words, using a lot of racial slurs. She would call him the N-word, disagreements about parenting and fairness, pure abuse. But Tolu endured it all, but it looks like he ignored all these red flags. This woman, at some point, Tolu said they were watching a TV and then they saw an advert where children in deprived areas in Africa begging for water. This lady made the comment that that's how he would have been living if he hadn't moved to the UK. Such comments are very infuriating, but Tolu overlooked it. But at this point, this lady was pregnant, so she asked Tolu to move in with her, and Tolu did because he wanted to kind of start a family together. The kids did not respect Tolu, and same as their mother, the kids started saying, using words, "You're not my father." If he tries to discipline them, the woman always confronted Tolu in case he said anything that the children did not like. So this continued, went on and on and on. There was disagreements upon disagreements. So eventually Tolu moved out of the house because at that point he was tired. And shortly after, the lady gave birth. So when the lady gave birth, Tolu expected the woman to add his name onto the child's birth certificate as the father, but the lady refused. Tolu had to go to court and then get the court or the judge to force the woman to add his name onto the birth certificate after they did a DNA test which confirmed that Tolu was indeed the father of the child. So that was resolved. Tolu got his name onto the birth certificate. But at that point, fortunately enough, Tolu had been able to register with the UK NMC, got his English proficiency exams, got a job with a sponsorship. But the sad sad thing is Tolu didn't keep his mouth shut. He didn't keep quiet about it. He let the lady know that he's got a 5-year sponsorship, and then in 5 years time he's going to get his indefinite leave to remain. After that, Tolu said the woman changed drastically. The woman became very nice to him, and started treating Tolu a bit better, speaking with him in a very polite manner and all sort of ways, which got their relationship to restart. But it didn't take long, and the disagreements started again. Racial slurs, racial abuse, all sort of things started happening again, which wasn't very unusual because of the history they had. But what made this worse at this point is the lady actually had a child who was mixed race, so you would expect something better from such a person. Yet she continually abused Tolu, used very bad words, racial words, the N-word and all of that, whenever they had disagreements. Tolu informed some of his friends, who actually advised him to run for his life because they thought this woman is a danger to Tolu. She's a red flag and that he might put him in trouble at some point. But unfortunately, he ignored that. Tolu did not listen to his friends or the advice that his friends gave him. But that is not the worst part of this story. Tolu moved out of the house once again, lived on his own, and then eventually moved on. The lady moved on as well. By this time, Tolu had actually managed to buy a house for himself, done a lot of hard work, worked 2 jobs, done a lot of shifts, managed to buy a house. Those of us in the UK, know how hard it is to be able to save money and buy a house. At this point, the lady got to know that Tolu's got, doing well, he's got a house for himself and all of that. So one day, out of the blue, the lady called Tolu on video call, and she was almost completely naked, wearing just a bra and just shorts. Tolu seeing all of this, the woman, she says the woman started using some sexually charming words and kind of stuff, and he got moved. He actually got interested in the woman again, and that was the downfall of Tolu. Tolu once again started seeing the woman, actually snitched on his friends who had previously advised him to run away from this lady. Tolu snitched on them, told the lady everything that the friends had told him and all of that. Started seeing the woman again, the woman coming to his house every now and then they started sleeping together and all of that. Eventually the lady moved in again and got pregnant. Now Tolu got enough money. He decided that he was going to open a children's home, which he was going to partner with his friend and then make it in a way that a place where they help or assist children with autism. The friend that he partnered with added his wife onto the board of the directors. So Tolu's lady, the lady that he's living with, they're actually not married yet. So she also wanted Tolu to add her onto the board of directors, which Tolu refused because the lady didn't have the needed skills or the expertise to sit on the board of directors for a children's home. This became another debate. Every day there was issues, but meanwhile, at this point, know that the woman was living with Tolu in Tolu's house, the house that he has bought for himself, with her 3 children. There was disagreements upon disagreements. The woman wanted to be part of the project, but Tolu didn't want her to be part. So one day, Tolu went to work, and at the workplace, police came there and arrested Tolu, citing that he has been accused of rape. He thought it was a joke at that point, or he thought they were just some form of prank or something. But lo and behold, the lady had actually phoned the police and reported him to the police that he has been raping her, emotionally blackmailing her, sexually harassing her, and a whole lot of other crimes that Tolu verbally denies. He's facing a court hearing in February 2026. The sad part of this story is now Tolu has been barred from going into his house because that's where the lady with her 3 children are living now. So he's not allowed to go into that house. He's been suspended from his work pending the investigation until the court makes a decision before he will or will not get another job to do. So now Tolu has no work. Tolu has no place to sleep. That is the situation of Tolu now. And these things actually happen a lot, among the immigrant community. But one thing I would say is sometimes we need to look at the red flags, and maybe see the people we are compatible with or not. Let me know your views or your opinions in the comment section. But this is a very sad story, and I actually feel very sad for the children involved in this situation because they are caught up in something they have no idea about, and they didn't invite for themselves either. Let's hope and see how this investigation goes. Hopefully, if he is not found guilty, he will be free to go. However, if he is found guilty, that means he will possibly be facing up to 17 years of prison time. So guys, I think it's a lesson to every one of us, and we have to learn a lot from this story. This story was actually brought out by the Launch Club on YouTube. So if you're interested in watching the original story, you can I'll leave the link in the description that you can click on, watch the original story from the Launch Club. But thanks a lot for watching to the end, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of important and impactful stuff coming. See you later.
See you. Bye.